Exactly 1 week ago today, we rolled this bone stock 2002 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD crew cab long bed into the shop with the goal of producing one of the coolest big block power tow rigs that we could build. Now it is, like I said, 1 week later. We have a dyno appointment this Friday and hopefully we can meet it because we got a lot of work to do and a couple of days to get there. It's actually Tuesday as I record this after work. So let me give you the quick up-to-date if you're not familiar with what we're building, and then I'll show you progress report of where we're at. So it's the 02 2500 HD, like I mentioned, gas powered by the 8.1 liter Gen 7 big block Chevy, backed up by an Allison 1000 automatic transmission. It's got a transfer case in the middle because it's four-wheel drive, and then it has the AAM 11.5 rear end, I believe. And this is a heavy-duty truck, and we're just trying to add some more power. It did baseline a fairly embarrassing low number for a big block. But we hope to add to that number by quite a bit. I think my goal initially, don't know if it'll happen, was 400 horsepower at the wheel. So let me know now what you think it will produce, and if everything goes right, the dyno will be at the tail end of this video. Now, we are gonna produce those extra horsepowers with the help of some added airflow. We're not doing forced induction. This is an NA build. We are using the ported, CNC ported PSI 8.8 cylinder heads that we picked up from good buddy Hank Slocum. Look him up on the 8.1 groups if you want a set. It's gonna have the whole 8.8 top end, including this long runner intake, which is gonna help the big block produce lots of torque. The heads, I believe, flow somewhere around 300 CFM on the intake side, not sure on the exhaust, but they're gonna bump the compression a tiny bit as well. And then when we combine that with the BP203 camshaft that we have inside the motor already, and the long tube headers and the full exhaust, hopefully this thing makes a lot more torque and a lot more horsepower. So let's continue on. I'll show you brief things along the way. My initial goal when we started this project was to be heavily involved and to do my normal, like, not how-to content, but my normal content showing all the steps along the way of what we're building. But my attention has been demanded elsewhere this week at the shop. I haven't had really any time at all to do anything on this project. So guys, a lot of you asked last time, why even bother showing it? Well, because I still think it's cool. I think it's a fun project, and I've been doing a lot of the welding on the exhaust, but my guy Chris, he has been knocking all of the work out. He's been with me for a little over a year. I trust him with everything that we do here, so he's been knocking out of the park. He's a rock star, and we got just a little bit left to go. So I think intake goes on next. We have to modify the fuel system just a little bit. We got to add a regulator because the PSI fuel rails are returned-less. We're waiting on push rods. I ordered those Monday because they're, of course, a different length. I ordered those Monday. They should be here tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Once we get that in, I've got to add a oil fill port to the valve cover because the stock 8.1 intake has the oil fill actually in the intake. So we're going to cut a hole right here and put an aluminum tube with a neat little billet filler cap. I'll show you that in a minute. But yeah, so fingers crossed, guys. We got a deadline to meet for this Friday, and I hope we can meet it. All right, so this will be like one of the things that I'm actually gonna film. We need an oil fill on this engine. The 8.1 has an oil fill through the intake. 8.8 intake obviously does not. Chris is over there building a mount for the fuel pressure regulator. And we gotta be able to get oil in the engine. So you see that hole right there? This is what we're going to do to fill it. I went to Summit Racing and I picked up this neat little billet oil fill cap right there. I'll put the link down in the description because it's pretty cool. And I just grabbed some aluminum tube, I cut it to length, I got it sanded, I got it cut to how it's going to sit. And I'll demonstrate real quick here. We're just gonna put it in that empty spot right there. It's gonna come off to the side and boom, we'll get oil into this engine. So I'll fire up the TIG real quick. We'll get the cap onto the tube, then we'll just drill the hole in the valve cover and weld it in the valve cover. Simple as can be. All right, first step, I'm gonna switch the TIG torch over from my gas lens to just standard nozzle. when you weld an AC, a lot of heat goes back into the nozzle and that screen supposedly can melt, which we don't want. I also do use a different tungsten. I can't remember the names of all the tungstens, but I found one that works better for aluminum and one that works better for stainless. Something like that. All right, to make sure we have the appropriate spacing, I have the socket right there. This is the threaded fill cap. You could weld that right to the valve cover, but we want to make it a little more convenient to fill. So we put that there, and we put this there. We need filler. All right, now I think I have everything I need. I know they make rap songs about like stacking bands and whatever. Somebody used to make a rap song about stacking dimes. I can get into that. Stacking dimes all day, you better not play. Okay, I won't quit my day job just yet, but I'll take it. All right, the top half of the tube is all welded together. Now we just need to make a hole there and weld it to the valve cover. So, let's make a hole. Look, they were right there too, and I didn't even wear them. Always wear safety glasses, folks. Hey Chris, how much do you trust me? I need you to hold something that's going to get really hot really quick. I got these MIG gloves here.
Not in place?
Yeah, I don't have a good way to clamp it really. But the you see that edge there? I think if you hold that basically so it's kind of flush with the edge. I left the hole small so we can kind of grind it out afterwards, but if you can do that, but leave me just a little room there. Think you can do that?
Right.
I'll try to be quick, but it's gonna, like I said, it does get warm very fast. Good on your eyes?
Go.
On these valve covers, they're a little dirty, so it takes a minute to burn off the oil before it'll actually take. But you think you're happy with that position? Kind of pointed towards the front of the motor. Yeah? All right. guys, this is the moment, right?
Yes.
So tell everybody what you've been doing for the past week.
8.1 to 8.8 conversion on this here Silverado.
You excited?
Nervous.
You're nervous. So he's been kicking ass. We've got everything almost put back together. We left the fan out. I say we, but it was Chris. We left the fan out just for now because we want to make sure, you know, everything fires up. But we've got the new heads, the new cam, the headers are in. We've got new injectors. Pretty much everything on the top of this motor has been apart. He's got the fuel system already primed and leak checked. So you want to do the honors, Chris? Was it really just that simple? Now, I should note this is 100% untuned. I haven't even changed the tune for the larger injectors yet. But so far, runs pretty decent. Chris, take a listen. Chris said he was going to hate the exhaust.
Why is it getting quiet? It sounds good.
I think it has a nice little rumble to it. So we're just gonna finish up. We'll do a couple of leak checks and stuff like that, but it started up and the dyno is tomorrow morning, so fingers crossed. Still gotta tune it. What do you think?
Got quite a bit of power.
We'll at least drive to the dyno shop tomorrow? Yeah. All right, good work, Chris. You knocked it out of the park, buddy. Alrighty, it's the next day. We've just did our final checks, you know, topping off coolant and stuff like that. Chris is off to the dyno shop. They're gonna get started on the tune. We'll go down a little bit later to watch a couple pulls and stuff. So last chance, drop your comments down below about how much power you think this 8.1 is gonna make, or not make.
The wheels 371 horse.
371, 466.
Really
That's
good
a
for what it is.
pretty healthy gain, I'd say.
And that's in third gear, because I don't like to run these tires really fast and forth, so it'd probably be a little higher than that.
I got
Usually
you.
the torque comes up, but horsepower goes down in fourth gear.
Do you have the baseline graph you could overlay on that?
I didn't do a baseline on it. I did the whole road tuning first. So,
Oh, we had one from a week or two ago.
Did you? Okay, cool. I don't know when you put it in.
It may be right here. It might be under Garrett.
Oh, okay. That's probably it. Yep.
Yeah, we just did 2 runs.
Yeah, that's quite a big improvement though. Blowing up
All right, so before and after, we went from 216 to 370 horsepower, 287 to 466 torque. I'm happy with that, Garrett. I think that'll be a pretty peppy difference.
Yeah, what dyno likes us feel that one.
Yeah. So you said there was an 8.1 Avalanche.
Yeah.
What any idea what parts combo they had on it?
They said heads and cam. I don't know what the specs were. They didn't give me specs.
Okay.
But it was quite a bit lower.
So there's the 306, 402. All right, I'll take it.
Still a vast improvement over stock, but not near like.
What did there?
Yeah.
I'd say, do you know what there's
I don't
baselined
know.
at?
We didn't have a baseline.
I got you.
So they just did it first.
So I definitely got to point this part out because everyone said with the heads it would not make low RPM torque, and we made it at 3,500 RPM is where our peak torque's at.
Yeah.
So suck it, commenters.
Well, look how flat it is. It makes you wonder
Peak torque is from 35 all the way to 42 is the same torque number.
I think. So we're gonna take the truck out and have a little bit of fun with it in just a second, which, trust me, you're gonna wanna see. This truck is now a blast. But first, I wanted to talk numbers and kind of put it in the perspective a little bit. Some of which you saw me just make a little bit of fun with, but one of the concerns that people had was that by installing a freer flowing cylinder head and a more aggressive camshaft and headers and stuff like that, larger throttle body, that we are going to shift the power curve of this engine into a spot that's really not usable for our goals. Because remember, we're trying to build a tow rig here. The owner he had a gas big block truck and he just wanted to accentuate on its strengths. So yeah, the concern was that, well, you're putting a too big camshaft in, you're putting too big a cylinder heads on, and it's going to make less power, or it's going to shift the power band to a place where it's not usable. So first, let's talk about peak numbers, because that's the only number that a dyno really gives you right off the bat. Initially, we made 216 horse at 4,000 RPM. We made 371 pound-feet at 4,700 RPM. So yeah, we did shift the peak power by 700 RPM, but if you look at torque, we only raised it by 200 RPM. And of course, we have 180 pound-feet more than when we started. But more importantly, if you look at the graphs overlaid, there's literally not a single point where the stock 8.1 made more power or more torque than the modified version. In fact, the opposite is true. We made substantially more power and torque everywhere in the RPM range. So from the moment the operator started the dyno test, which is as low as it could go without downshifting, all the way to the top, we made more power, and it carried the power further. So we have made an engine that's much more usable and is going to produce much more torque, especially for towing, because remember, that's what it's designed to do. Then when we compare this to, like, say, other vehicles, use my 8.1 as an example. I did dyno the ugly truck when it had a stock 8.1 in it. And I think it made somewhere around
306 and 429.
But remember, that was through a 4L80, not an Allison transmission. It's a two-wheel drive truck, so there is no transfer case to absorb power. And this only has an 8.6-inch 10-bolt rear axle instead of the 11.5-inch full-floating rear axle that's underneath the customer's truck. So those absorb a lot more power. And then you got to consider things like the elevation, where in Colorado Springs, it's about 5,500 feet of elevation. It's an extremely hot day. And on top of that, every dyno just reads differently. So that's kind of one thing to consider. Also, don't forget, like, if you're comparing numbers from your 96 big block Chevy from the factory, those numbers are at the flywheel, not at the rear tire, which is how a dyno measures it. And then finally, the last thing worth mentioning is a lot of people be like, oh, well, I got a cam 6.0 in my truck and it makes, 380, 390 horsepower. I've got an LS3 that makes 420 horsepower at the wheels. Again, a few things to keep in mind. Your LS3 might make more than 370 horsepower at the wheels, but it's probably going to be at a higher RPM, and also I would guarantee that motor is not going to make 466 pounds of torque at 3,500 RPM at the rear wheel. So just a few things to kind of keep in mind, but I think this is a perfect modification for towing, so let's take it out and have some fun with it. Sounds pretty neat. So we just got off the dyno, we got our numbers. I'm here with Garrett, he's the owner of the truck, and we're just gonna go for a test drive and get his reaction. And this will be the first time I've ridden in the truck. Well, I drove it stock, but I haven't driven it at all since then. Chris drove it after he did the work, so see what we think. What do you think?
That's amazing. Love that.
That's a really cool sound too. It's like a mix of induction noise and exhaust, and
some of it's going to be smiles per gallon for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
idea what this truck weighs?
7,000.
7,000.
Yep. With me in it.
That's a big truck. So what do you think, Chris? You want an 8.1 for yourself now?
I think I want to get rid of the 5.3, so I'm doing 8.1.
I like it. So Mark, tell me real quick, what is this that we're looking at?
I think it's a 60 Dodge Trapco.
And there's something special under the hood, I'm told?
LS3 supercharged.
I like the paint. Oh. And what would possess the owner to do this?
Unless you wanted a fast motorhome that can go to Florida and back.
That is awesome.